So tonight, all about blockchain and smart contracts. We are promoting our blockchain programming course, which is starting this spring. So if you go to the chat, you can check out a link to the course that we're talking about, this one here, blockchain programming. It's going to begin on March 9th and run for 8 weeks. And so this is what we are talking about tonight, this blockchain programming course. Here is the agenda for tonight. We're going to cover 4 main topics right here. These 4 main topics, like a teaser for what you will learn in our 8-week course. The course is also very project-based, where we get hands-on. Tonight, we are just doing more of theory and introduction, but the course itself is very project-based. So we're going to talk about why we should learn or care about the blockchain in the first place, and what are some types of blockchains like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and how can you start to program for a blockchain? Like, how do you write smart contracts? We'll also dive into cryptocurrencies and NFTs, which are types of smart contracts. There are a couple projects that you can build by doing blockchain programming. And there are a couple of projects that we will do in the course, along with many more projects as well. So let's begin with our first topic, why learn about the blockchain in the first place? Why did we create this course? Well, there are tons of reasons to learn about this new decentralized technology. It's a relatively new field compared to other types of programming, like just your traditional software development. And so that means you can build a lot of cutting edge projects that are innovative because, it's a new field compared to other types of fields and even other types of technology fields because it's a new type of technology. The first blockchain was only built in 2008. That was with Bitcoin, so relatively new technology. Another reason to learn blockchain technology is because of its increasing prevalence in our world today. Likely you are familiar with cryptocurrencies, NFTs. You probably have some sense of those things because they're so popular in the media. But beyond that, the power of decentralized technology is quite large. It reaches across different industries and really can touch any industry that uses code. And that's a lot of industries. Almost every industry today is using code for something, some aspect of the industry. So we see blockchain have implications and the potential to affect different types of industries. First, just being digital currencies. With the invention of cryptocurrencies came a new type of currency, and we'll talk more about cryptocurrencies later on tonight. That's one large way and very prevalent way that the blockchain is affecting the world today. We also have NFTs, which also have become quite popular. Beyond that, we see the blockchain affecting things like websites, which we talked about yesterday. If you were here for my Web3 webinar, we talked all about how the blockchain is affecting software like video games, websites, mobile apps, desktop apps with Web3. So the power of smart contracts goes beyond just cryptocurrencies and NFTs and can affect any industry that uses code, that uses software, because a blockchain is just a piece of software, which means it's just an algorithm or a process that runs with code, that runs on computers with code. And this means it can connect to other pieces of code. So the blockchain could connect to the code behind a mobile app, for example. And we'll talk more about why we would want to use this technology in our software in the first place. Why we would have a mobile app and why we would want to connect it to the blockchain. Or a video game, why we would want to connect it to a smart contract. Or a website, why we would want to inject it with decentralized technology. So we see these large implications with any industry that uses software more and more every day. We see more smart contracts being built, which we'll get into more detail about those later on tonight as well. The blockchain is even called the future of the internet by some because of how it affects the ability to make websites, which means that there's a different way or an extension of how to build a website, which again we talked about yesterday in Web 3, because you can take a piece of software like a website and you can connect it to decentralized technology. And as more and more websites are built like this affects how the web runs and how typical website runs. And therefore, that's why the blockchain is sometimes called the future of the internet, because of its effect on web development. Another reason to learn blockchain programming is to make better investments, better informed investments, because everything on a blockchain is publicly available for you to read. All of the processes, all of the coins, the NFTs, the companies, the smart contracts, everything that's running on a blockchain is publicly available for you to see. You can't hide any of the code on a blockchain. So if you could understand the code and how things are running, what's possible in smart contracts, if you can check the code, then you can make better informed investments because you have a higher level of knowledge about what's happening on the blockchain. You can actually read the code behind the process and you can check if the company or the project is going to do what it promises to do, because you can't hide your code that you put on the blockchain. You can't say that you put a process up there, like you can't say that you put up a contract that's going to sell houses. You can't say that you did it and not have the proof. You cannot hide anything on a blockchain. So this makes it powerful if you understand more behind the scenes, the programming behind what's running on the blockchain, then you can make better informed investments. And of course, there are good job prospects in the field because, it's a new field with high demand for programmers and few programmers to meet the demand. So that is another reason to learn all about the blockchain. Of course, you can add a new skill to your resume. That's always good. And blockchain specifically is a very popular and cutting edge skill to add. So those are a few reasons on why to learn this technology, why we created this course about a year ago now. So we have a year's worth of videos and projects that you can already start watching. And we're coming back again for a brand new fresh semester live this spring. Does anyone have questions so far about why learn the blockchain? If you have questions anytime tonight, please feel free to ask. You can just drop it question in the chat anytime. Our next topic is going to be about two specific blockchains, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and how they work. So we're going to get more nitty-gritty into the technicality of how this technology works. Now we know why we should care, and now let's talk about what we're actually caring about. So we'll talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum. So what is a blockchain in the first place? Well, you can visualize a blockchain metaphorically as a chain of blocks, just like the name says. Now, it's not actually a physical chain of blocks somewhere. That's just a metaphor for the data structure of the code, because a blockchain is just built with code. It's just a script that's running with computer power to do something with code, just like this website is running with code, or your mobile apps, they run with code. This live stream is sharing to you all thanks to code. Same thing with the blockchain. It's running something with code. And the metaphor for the structure of that code is a chain of blocks. So this is a chain that is ever growing. As people interact with the blockchain, which there are many different blockchains out there, whichever one you pick, as people interact with one, its chain grows longer and longer. Because in these blocks that are all chained together, in these blocks are data, which just means information. In these blocks are information about what has been happening. If I buy an NFT, that transaction gets recorded. Alexandra bought an NFT today at this time, and then that information about that process gets added to the chain. If you create a new smart contract, or if you send someone cryptocurrency, all of those transactions, they get recorded. And of course, there's also validation, encryption, and security that goes into how the information gets added, how the transactions get approved. But that's more into the actual cryptography side of how the blockchain itself functions. That's a whole other area of expertise. For our purposes, all we have to understand is that metaphor, that visual metaphor of this long chain that keeps growing as people interact with a blockchain. The number one property of a blockchain that makes it unique, or a special piece of technology, is its ability to establish trust. Now, there's many other properties and benefits of a blockchain, but this is the number one property that you should remember. If you're going to remember anything from tonight, just remember this one sentence, that number one property of a blockchain is to establish trust between parties without an intermediary. So what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at an example. Let's say I want to do a large transaction like purchasing a house. Typically, traditionally, if I wanted to buy a house, I would have to involve some third parties to help establish trust in the transaction. I'd have maybe a lawyer, I'd get my bank involved, and sign some contracts. And the whole purpose is to establish trust in the transaction. I want to make sure that the house is actually for sale and that I'm actually going to get rightful ownership to it. The seller has to have trust that I'm actually going to give them real money and that it's a valid transaction. I'm a valid customer. That I'm not going to just run away with the house or the ownership of the house. And so with this complex transaction, I need to establish trust by bringing in third parties and signing some contracts. And these are known as intermediaries, the middlemen in your transaction. Kind of like if you buy something with your credit card, the intermediary is your credit card to act as establishing trust in sending over the money for some object or some product. Same idea with this house. But if I were to do the transaction over the blockchain instead, then I wouldn't actually have to involve any intermediaries. My intermediary would actually be the blockchain itself. So I can buy the house through the blockchain and I can trust the blockchain that the transaction will be valid. I don't have to bring in extra third parties to establish the trust. And same thing with the seller. The seller of the house, they can also be rest assured that the transaction is valid because they're doing it through the blockchain. Now you might be thinking, why would anyone trust the blockchain? Why not just bring in third parties? Well, the reason you can trust a blockchain, there are several reasons we'll talk more about coming up next, but the reason you can trust the blockchain is kind of like what we already said. The code on there is available for everyone to see. So you can actually see the code that is going to do the transaction. You can see if I send the funds for the house, will I get the house ownership? You can check that code and you can know that that process is not going to change because everything on a blockchain is permanent. It's immutable and cannot be changed. And so that's how me, the buyer, and the seller, we can both establish trust because we're not trusting each other. We're not trusting the third parties. We're not trusting the contract that we signed. Instead, what we're trusting is the code on the blockchain, which is going to automatically do the process of the transaction. As soon as I send the money, the contract or the code will check my ownership of that money, it will check the ownership of the house, and it will do the transaction if everything is found to be valid and approved. And so both of the parties are not trusting each other, they're just trusting this code to do the job. And so that is the number one reason that this technology is so interesting and useful and important, because it eliminates these third parties, and trust can be established between two people or two companies that have never met, never talked to each other. They're just looking at the code that lives on the blockchain, and they're just trusting the process. If the blockchain says that it will send you the house, then you'll get the house. If the transaction is found to be valid, if you actually send the proper money and you're the rightful owner of the money, and then the owner of the house has the ownership of that house. So that is the number one property about a blockchain. The technical term or definition for a blockchain is a time-stamped series of immutable transactions. Time-stamped means that everything gets recorded with the date and time of when it happened. So you cannot do anything anonymously on a blockchain. If you want to just look at some data on the blockchain, you can do that anonymously. Sure, you can look at stuff anonymously. But if you want to change something or do an action, interact with the code, or buy something, you cannot do that anonymously. You have to sign the transaction with your wallet. And so we have this timestamp series. A series is just a list. If those of you who have programming experience, then you can relate a blockchain to a linked list of chained items. And this time-stamped series is immutable. So once you put something onto a blockchain, you cannot take it off. This also helps establish trust, because I can trust that the code is not going to change at the last second. If I want to buy the house, the blockchain is not going to change in the last second and not give me the house. The code there is permanent. And also, if you do an action, you cannot erase it from the blockchain. If I buy an NFT, I cannot erase that transaction from the blockchain. I could sell the NFT or ask for a refund, but I cannot actually go into the blockchain and erase what I did or delete what I did. The whole point is that it always records what has happened at any point in time. And this is also to establish trust. And this is a timestamp series of immutable transactions. But a transaction does not have to be a purchase. That's just the term for some kind of interaction that changes something on the blockchain. It doesn't have to be a purchase of some sort. Usually it is a purchase where you're buying something over the blockchain, but a transaction could be any kind of interaction with the code on a blockchain. If there's code for a video game on the blockchain, then if you play the video game, you are doing a transaction because you are interacting with the blockchain's video game. If there is a contract or code to allow you to write a journal and keep notes on the blockchain, then every time you write a note, you're doing a transaction. That's just the term for any kind of interaction. So that's the technical term for a blockchain. If anyone has a question about those technical terms, please ask away. Feel free to drop a question in the chat. I know it's a lot of technical knowledge, information that I'm dumping on you, but we will cover this even more in depth in our course. So don't worry if you don't understand everything right off the bat. We will talk more about this in week 1 of the spring semester as well. Now you might be thinking at this point, well, who owns all these blockchains and where are they running? Where do they reside? Can I go visit and look at one? Well, a blockchain actually doesn't live in some physical location because it's decentralized technology. A blockchain is the most popular form today of a decentralized technology, which means a technology that doesn't have a central entity or centralized ownership. Usually companies today, they have a central entity, like there's a CEO, there's an office, there's a warehouse, maybe to store the servers, the databases, because they're centralized. But the whole point of a blockchain is to be decentralized, which means there's no central location or owner of a blockchain. Instead, a blockchain is known as a peer-to-peer network. This means that it's run by computers all around the world, and these computers are running the blockchain. They keep it running because they are in charge of checking transactions and adding valid transactions to the chain, allowing them to go through. Now, it's not people that do this, it's the actual code running on the people's computers. And if you wanted to, you could join your computer to join the network. And then some of your computing power would be sacrificed to run the blockchain. Because if you want to run some code, it takes up computer power. Like if I want to play a video game on my computer, it takes up some of my computer power. Same thing if I want to visit a website. It takes up a bit of my computer power to run the browser app. Same idea with a blockchain. The computers around the world, they are running the blockchain by giving some of their computing power to run the code that does all the blockchain processes. So that's how a blockchain is run. It's just run by people like you and me. They connect their computers to the network, and then the computer is automatically doing the job of the blockchain. So there's no actual human intervention, but humans have to connect their computer to the network. That's the extent of the human intervention there. And there's a lot more that we can talk about in terms of how the blockchain itself functions. How does it check transactions? How does it keep the chain growing? How does it make sure that nothing can be changed? How does it encrypt and secure the data? All of that. So there's a lot more you can get. It's more into the cryptography side of actually building a blockchain itself. We have Anthony asking about, how does your program compare to programs and certificate opportunities through organizations such as MIT or other institutions? Well, great question. Every program is different out there on the web. Ours has been running successfully for a year now. Let's see, well, ours is special in terms of you get lifetime access to our course, in terms of you get all the previous semesters and all the future semesters. You get dedicated instructor support. And so there's a lot more of that human help with our program. I'd say that's the number one way that our program compares to other organizations, is that, instructor personalized help, because our class sizes are small, so we can give you a lot of that attention. Great question. And we also have a question from Blazin. How long will it take learning this programming, and how much will be the starting salary with no blockchain programming experience? Okay, great question as well. So if you have no programming experience, that is fine, because we will teach you programming from scratch. So if I go to the course curriculum, you can see here, we begin by learning the fundamentals of this blockchain programming. And so we start in week 2 with the fundamentals, and then we cover about week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's say about 7 weeks, because week 1 doesn't involve the programming itself. Week 1 just covers the overall ecosystem. But in general, we designed 8 weeks to be the optimal length of how long it will take you to learn this programming, if you have no experience whatsoever. If you have some experience, it will help you get your foot in faster. But no experience, then I would say 8 weeks as we designed here. By the end of the 8 weeks, you'll be able to put your code onto the blockchain and understand, of course, other people's code that's already there. And starting salaries will be different depending on the company. So they are definitely equal to typical programming salaries. If you have no experience, then yes, I would, well, it depends on how much programming experience you have in general, but you can always start as an intern if you have no programming experience whatsoever and learn on the job. But yes, starting salaries will vary, but on average, they are at least equal to a regular programmer. Anthony asks, do you offer job search and placement? Yes, we do. We do have some partnerships with companies that are looking for some interns, at least to begin, and then transition into full-time. So yes, we do offer job search and placement and help with resume, cover letters, interview, prep, solving that coding interview, all of that. Great questions, everyone. Please ask away, ask as much as you want. So the first blockchain began in 2008 with Bitcoin. Since then, we've had many other blockchains be developed as well. You could even make your own blockchain too, if you had your own idea for a special spin on a blockchain. So Bitcoin blockchain was quite revolutionary, of course, because it brought all this technology to life. So it was a huge deal when it was released in 2008. It was the first time that cryptocurrencies were invented. So this was also extremely new and quite important piece of technology. With Bitcoin, with the Bitcoin blockchain came the first cryptocurrency, which was the Bitcoin cryptocurrency. So it was a big deal. And about 7 years later came another big deal called Ethereum. Ethereum is another blockchain and very important as well. Bitcoin is the most popular blockchain today. Ethereum is number 2 most popular. So Bitcoin is most popular because it was the first one, invented the most popular cryptocurrency. But Ethereum quickly gained popularity because it was actually an extension of Bitcoin, and it allowed for new features and abilities for programmers. If this course would not exist without Ethereum, because Ethereum actually made it possible to put complex processes on a blockchain. Bitcoin doesn't really have the same ability to have complex scripts, only simple scripts. But with Ethereum, you can put any kind of process onto a blockchain. Like you could put an online shop, or you could put your online school. You can develop smart contracts for your business processes. You do something simple like a journal, any kind of system, you can put it onto Ethereum and run the system over the blockchain. Now, the whole reason to take your whole existing system and put it onto Ethereum is to take advantage of the benefits of Ethereum. Like you can use cryptocurrencies, you can establish trust, you have immutable transactions, you have better storage, tracking of the data and what has happened, better data loss prevention. And this was quite revolutionary because it really expanded what you can do with a blockchain. Doug is asking, will there be a replay? I'm at work now and trying to follow along. Yes, we will. We are recording this, so you can watch it back on YouTube or Circle. So let me just drop a link to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. You can watch back on our YouTube channel. We will be posting the recording. We'll also post it on Circle. And we will have another blockchain webinar maybe in a month or so. So we will do this again. All right, so yes, Ethereum. We are going to be using Ethereum in our course. That is our blockchain of focus because it is the most popular one for building processes, which is the whole point of blockchain programming, building smart contracts. Once you master one blockchain like Ethereum, then you can easily transition to another blockchain, Solana, Cardano, Near, whatever you want to go to next, if you want to go to anything next, because there are other blockchains out there too. But Ethereum does have the best documentation, the best tutorials out there, most popular one, most projects you can explore on GitHub that have already been created. So there's just the most action happening on Ethereum right now. And if you go to another blockchain, then you likely have to use another programming language, because oftentimes these blockchains have their own programming languages. But the good thing is all programming languages are quite similar to each other. So once you master one language, then it's easy to move to another language if you have to. So we are learning Ethereum in this course, but if you get hired at a company for another blockchain, then you can easily transfer your skills. They're cross-transferable across different blockchains. Blazin is asking, are all the course plans up to date with the latest changes? Has the self-directed course include instructor help with any questions during the course and after the training? Yes, the course plans are up to date. And yes, the self-directed does include instructor help. So yes and yes. So we have these 3 different plans for those of you that don't know. I'll just show them here. So yes, we have self-directed live classes and project help. In all of these plans, yes, you get unlimited instructor support. And that goes even after you finish the semester. You have unlimited support throughout the end of time. Anthony's asking, what are the PMT options, financing, scholarships, loans, etc.? So we do have payment plans if you want to pay over time, if you don't want to pay all at once. We also have invoices if you want to get an invoice and get some reimbursement from your employer. Lots of employers are looking for upskilling their staff, so that could be an option. And yes, we do also have options for scholarships and financing, so just email us. I will drop an email if you need extra help with financing. We do have other opportunities for that, so I'll drop a link to our team email, alicia@lumiwealth.com. You can also message us on Circle. So yeah, we definitely have more options. Just feel free to reach out to us. You can also book a call with us if you want to talk more on the phone. I'll drop a link to that as well, because we definitely have more financing options. Glenford is asking, why is Ethereum split in 2, ERC20 and etc.? All right, so ERC20 refers to a type of token. So there are different tokens on Ethereum where they represent different types of smart contracts. So something like an NFT or a coin or my online store, those are all going to look different in how they're created, how I create the NFT, the coin, the store. And so because there are these different types of contracts, they're given different standards like ERC20. So we will talk more about these different types of contracts later on in our course, in around week 4 or 5. Great question. All right, next let's talk more about the code on the blockchain. So when we are putting something onto a blockchain, we put it as what's known as a smart contract, which is just a fancy term for some code. And for Ethereum, we have to write this code in Solidity. You cannot write it in English. You have to write it in a programming language. And so yes, that is what we're going to be building throughout our 8 weeks, is smart contracts. And so when you make a purchase like a house, oftentimes you have to sign a contract to verify or to establish some trust that if I send the money, you'll send me the house. A smart contract is a similar idea, but the whole point of a smart contract is to write out some process. Like if you send the money, I will give you the house. But it's all written with code. And the code actually does the job. It takes your money and it sends you the house. So that's why it's called a smart contract, kind of like a smartphone. Blazin is asking, any discounts for this course for attendees? So I didn't get any special discounts for you today. We have this discount. I'm not sure if it still works, but I can try it. It expired last week, but let me try to apply it. See if it still works. Nope, it expired. Okay, no coupons today, sadly. You can get a 10% discount if you have 2 or more courses in your cart. You can also email us if we do get any discounts in the next few days. Just email us and ask us about that. I don't have any coupon codes right now. This one that I just tried is expired. But if you email us, then we can let you know if we will have some in the next few days. So please send an email. So yes, smart contracts, we'll be writing them out in our course. And there's tons of different types of contracts. Everything that you want to put on a blockchain, you have to put it as a smart contract. If I want to build a YouTube smart contract where I want to enable people to watch videos, upload videos, make comments, make channels, but I want to do it over the blockchain, then I'd have to write a smart contract for my YouTube contract. The smart contract's job is to do everything. It has to do all the work. Like, it has to allow uploading, allow new signups, allow watching, allow commenting, allow new channels, allow people to edit their name, edit their image, allow people to like, dislike, to leave a description in their video, to subscribe. The contract says exactly what everyone can do with your process. If you're building YouTube, same idea. If you're building a coin, you have to build the contract to describe the coin. What's the name? What's the value? Can people buy it? Can people destroy it? Can people transfer it? Can people send it around? Can people morph it later on? That'll be more NFTs. But yes, the contract's job is to define exactly what your process can do. And your process depends on the project. If I'm building YouTube, it's going to look different from if I'm building an NFT. And all these contracts, they run autonomously over the blockchain. This is different from another piece of code. Like, YouTube is not running with blockchain. YouTube is just running with its own servers, its own database, very centralized. So, there's warehouses with the data, with the servers. There's a CEO. There's very centralized ownership of it. And it has a large monopoly as well. But if I was building a decentralized YouTube, then I would put it as a smart contract on the blockchain, and it would run autonomously. So there would be no human intervention. Once I publish my contract for my YouTube, I cannot change the code on that contract, and I cannot insert myself in there. If you want to upload a video, I cannot go, nope, you can't upload that. The code will decide if you can upload the video. Once I publish the code, the developer, I don't have any more control over it. So you have to be careful what you publish, of course. And that's one of the reasons that contracts establish trust, because code is publicly available to see. Everyone can see what will happen when they interact with your code. And you cannot change it last second, nor can you do human intervention. And all these contracts, they run autonomously and immediately. As soon as someone wants to upload a video, the contract will check if they have enough funds to do it, if they are a valid user, if the video passes whatever the requirements you set. If the conditions are met, then the contract will immediately let the transaction go through. There's no human intervention or human check. Okay, Anthony scheduled a call. Great job. Excited to speak on a call. Sounds great. And Blazon's asking, is blockchain or Web3 programming better for more job opportunities? So blockchain and Web3, they go hand in hand. It kind of depends on what you're more interested in. The blockchain programming is all about building these smart contracts, focusing on what lives on the blockchain. The Web3 is very closely related, our Web3 course, but it's all about connecting a large audience of users to your smart contracts. Because let's say I do put YouTube onto the blockchain, right? It's a smart contract, but how is anyone going to interact with my smart contract? Likely only people that have taken the course, or only people with an expertise on the blockchain will be able to visit your YouTube smart contract. And for that reason, you bring in Web3. You can build something that makes it easier for a large audience to interact with your contract, like a website. The website is just the window to your smart contract that's doing all the work. So they work hand in hand. And if you're building your own project, then you'll have to know both. If you're building like your own website that connects to the blockchain, you'd have to know both sides. Web3 is a bit more advanced, so I would start with blockchain programming if you're unsure. It's a bit easier to get started with, because Web3 does require some knowledge of smart contracts first, and then connecting the website to the contracts second. So it's kind of the next step after blockchain programming. But the two, they work very closely together. I would build a smart contract that does all the work, and then I would build the website to get the visitors. Because I could tell people just go to the contract on the blockchain, but they would have to have a high knowledge of programming to get to the blockchain with code. Whereas if I just say go to my website, it's much easier to get an audience. For more job opportunities, probably Web3, because it's a bit more advanced, so you have more opportunities because you know a bit more. So strictly more job opportunities would be Web3 because you're at a higher level at this point. Great questions, everyone, tonight. I love it. Keep it going. Okay, so it's easy to get started building contracts. You can try out this official online code editor known as Remix. Not known as 7, known as Remix. And so here you can just go to the website in your browser and you can take a look at some sample contracts. Right here, you'll get these first 3. And you can even build your own, like I built a simple one here for variables. So this is a simulator where it's simulating some contracts and then running them on a blockchain. So here you can look at some examples like this NFT. So here, this is a contract for an NFT. And so it's defining information about the NFT, like its name and its symbol. And it's actually using a helper file to do a lot of the work behind the scenes. So this is actually a very large file that's doing a lot of the work. And then my file looks really small right here, but it's actually quite large because it's using this second file. So everything that you want to put on the blockchain, you'd write it in code that looks like this. And then you can just put it on the blockchain and boom, you can start interacting with it and anyone can start interacting with it. So this is a simulator where you can type in some code, you can run the code, and you can put it on a simulation of a blockchain, and then you can interact with it. So this is where we'll get started learning how to code because it's very convenient. But then, of course, later on, we'll get off this simulator and we'll work with the real thing. We have a question from Glenford, curious about building and incorporating with AI, artificial intelligence with the blockchain and Web3. Well, let's see, artificial intelligence with the blockchain and Web3. I mean, you can do artificial intelligence with lots of data and code. So yes, you can do artificial intelligence on data from the blockchain. So you'd have to scrape the data from the blockchain and then use it for your machine learning model. You could define a contract with some artificial intelligence inside of it. So I can look for more links and I can email them to you more about this specifically because I don't have any examples quickly available of specifically AI smart contracts. With Web3, you can do artificial intelligence on the web where you build models that run directly in the website. Very popular is TensorFlow.js for that. So that's just a matter of taking a website and building some machine learning model to run on the website. So for Web3, I would check out TensorFlow.js. For smart contracts, I'd have to get back to you with more examples on AI in the contracts. But there's definitely tons of examples where you're doing AI on blockchain data, and because a blockchain has a lot of data about transactions. But AI in the contract, I would email me for more examples of those. So you can email our team here, #1 point of contact. Great question. So don't worry if you don't understand everything here. You're probably really confused about all this because this is not English, really. I mean, yes, it does use English words, but technically this is not English. This is called Solidity. It's a programming language. And so we will learn how to read and write Solidity from scratch in the course. If you have experience with other languages like JavaScript, that will give you a big leg up. But if you don't have experience, that's fine. It will just take you more time to pick up the programming concepts because you've never programmed before. So it's still doable, just take more effort if you're a complete beginner. But most of my students are complete beginners. That is what I expect. So I encourage you to play around with Remix, have some fun. look up some contracts that you can type in here. But if you're overwhelmed by it, then don't worry. We will teach you everything from scratch of how to use this simulator and just all of it. So don't worry if it's confusing. Kind of expected to be confusing if you're a complete beginner. I was confused as well back when I began. Okay, there's an example of a contract that you can copy and paste. So if you'd like to, I will drop a link to the slides in the chat. So you can copy and paste this out and try running it if you feel inclined. Our final topic of the night is cryptocurrencies and NFTs. These are two very popular topics, of course, very hyped up in the media. When people think blockchain, they usually think, oh, cryptos, NFTs, but it does go beyond that. You know, smart contracts have a lot of power to build other things too. But these are the most popular types of contracts today. So we have to talk about them, and we will also build them in the course. We will build a cryptocurrency token and an NFT. So let's start with a cryptocurrency. This was quite revolutionary when it was first invented in 2008 with Bitcoin, because it solved the double spending problem of computer science, which had been a big problem for a long time and still is with regular digital currency. Where if I want to send you an image, for example, I can just text you an image, and it's just a copy of the image that I have on my phone. But with money, you cannot do the same thing. I cannot just text you a copy of my money because that's called counterfeiting or double spending in computer science. And this is a huge problem because being able to send a copy of money is a big way that, fraud happens, counterfeiting happens. But with cryptocurrencies, it's actually nearly impossible to counterfeit a cryptocurrency, especially compared to a regular digital dollar. And this is because of how cryptocurrencies work. It's not just a regular dollar, but it's actually backed by a blockchain, which means a blockchain tracks each cryptocurrency, each fraction of it. It tracks where it goes, who owns it, where it has been passed around. And this means that if you try to copy it or send a copy, the blockchain will prevent you from doing it because it will say, no, you're not actually the owner of that because it's tracking it. And there's a lot more in the cryptography side of it, but that's just a general idea. And so this is quite revolutionary, quite important, this new type of digital currency. This was a big deal with Bitcoin. Nowadays, there's many more cryptocurrencies today, of course. Ether for Ethereum, ADA for Cardano, Sol token for Solana, blah, blah, many, many, many more. So there's tons of cryptocurrencies out there. We're also going to learn how to build our own cryptocurrency token through a smart contract. So we will do that in our course. That will be a fun project. One of our projects will also be an NFT, and this is a non-fungible token. NFTs have gotten more popular over the past few years, usually for just collectible items to trade around and make some profit off of. But an NFT is actually more complex than that. An NFT is used to represent ownership of something on a blockchain. So if I'm buying a house, I can send you the cryptocurrency for the house, but how do I actually get the house? You can't just send me tons of concrete over the blockchain. No, instead you send me ownership. Just like if I buy a house in real life and I sign a contract with you, I get the title or the ownership to that house. And so the ownership changes from your name to my name, and it's very official. Same idea with NFTs. They actually go beyond just the artwork and the popular hype of making some money off of them. They're actually used to represent unique items and therefore unique ownership of items. So if I send you 100 Bitcoin for a house or 100 Ether coin for a house, then the contract or the code is going to send me an NFT that represents ownership of the house because it's a unique token or a unique asset that represents that individual house. So they're quite powerful NFTs. used to represent who owns what on a blockchain. Otherwise, how could we keep track of who owns what? So we will build an NFT contract in our course. So you'll learn more about how you can manage an NFT, how you can create tokens from your contract, because one contract can create multiple tokens of NFTs. How you can customize them, because an NFT, it isn't just an image, but it can be any type of media file, and it can have customizations and functionality. So it could do something, it could change over time, it could be used in pieces of software like video games, websites, mobile apps, and it can be used to represent unique ownership, and it can be highly customizable. You know, you have a lot of control as a programmer because you are writing some code, for example, for your NFT, and this code could be whatever processes you want. So you actually have a high level of customization and degree of control of what your NFT can do, what it can look like, what power or asset does it have. So it doesn't have to just be a piece of an image. It can go much more beyond that and be more complex. And of course, we'll build tons of other contracts too. For example, you can look at the curriculum on the page. Tons of contracts like a bank, a school. Okay, that's the wrong page. That's Web3. But things like a bank, a school, will build all those too. Things that are more like businesses or processes. You know, a cryptocurrency and NFT, they're not really businesses, but instead they're more like tokens, like assets. But you can also put processes, like a whole video game. You could make that a smart contract. Or, you know, your online store where you sell books. You can put that whole process, the whole system, and put it on the blockchain, and then therefore get all the advantages of the blockchain. So we will build all of those too. We have quite a few different projects because there's a huge range of projects that you can build with blockchain, with Web3. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, the blockchain affects any industry with code. So that's a lot of industries. That's, you know, everything from law to shipments to music, video games, TV, just websites, you know, which the web, that's a giant opportunity. So there are tons of different projects that you can create. So that is our final topic. Any questions about cryptocurrencies, NFTs, or anything really? The weather? No, not the weather. So yes, I'll drop a link to the course page. So I hope to see you all in March. We begin this class March 9th. Scroll, 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 scroll. Yes, March 9th. The class meets every Thursday, just like we met today. Every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, just like today. But we meet for 2 hours if you're live. And the total length is 8 weeks. There will be a holiday break at the end of March. So the total will be more like 9 weeks, but 8 weeks of classes. And remember, you get lifetime access. So if you can't watch 1 week, or if you become really busy right before the semester, you actually get all the semesters. So you don't have to worry about, you know, the time if something happens or you get very busy, you have to move, or you just miss a week, because you can watch next semester live as well. So you're a lifetime student here at Lumiwealth. That, I think, is another thing that makes us stand out, because, you know, at university they only give you the 1 semester, but here we give you all of the semesters. So I've talked your ear off at this point. Thank you everyone for your great questions tonight. Please feel free to ask any more right now. You can also email us or book a call with any further questions too. We're always happy to chat, especially since we have a month left before the course. So we encourage you to register up, book a call with us, and all that. Thanks for your great participation, everyone. Happy to answer all of your fun questions. Very intriguing. And yeah, that does it for tonight. We've reached the end of our time together, unless anyone wants to ask a question. So thank you. You've been an amazing crowd tonight, everyone. We will post this recording so you can watch back on YouTube, on Circle. So you will be able to watch this all back. Seems like no one has any further questions. So I guess we can call it a night then if no one has any questions. So thank you all again. And I'll see you either online if you want to message me, reach out, or I'll see you over email or on a call. We also will have more webinars next week, so please stay tuned and come back. I'm going to be hosting another webinar next week about another topic. So please come back and watch next week with me on another evening. Otherwise, I'll see you in March. So you better be there for our spring semester. I want to see all of you there because you've been a great audience with all your interaction. So I really hope that you will join. All right. Thanks, everyone. And feel free to head out. Shoo.